My name is Linda Komaroff, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the curator of Islamic art here and the head of the Art of the Middle East department. And I'm very happy to start the introductions for tonight's program, which I know is going to be wonderful. I have, and this is not an exaggeration, I've read every one of Gina Nahayi's 4 books and liked them all, especially the last one. So, and I'm not even a relative. So I'm just going to introduce the introducer, and then we can get started. So Jordan El-Grobli of the Levantine Center, who put all of this together and did most of the work, is going to come up and explain a little bit more about the program and do some introductions. So Jordan, please.
That was Linda Komaroff from the Art of the Middle East Department, and we're very grateful to Linda and also to Jenna Turner, her assistant, for coordinating all of this and making this possible. Did you notice that we ordered rain for tonight? And we got it? The thing is, we actually had over 300 reservations, and we didn't want the other 200 people who are not here at the moment to stay home, but people in LA are afraid of rain, and that's something I don't really understand. But of course, the novel is called Caspian Rain, and I've read it. It's very sad. And we'll get a chance later to ask Gina how, living in the land of sunshine and Hollywood, she manages to maintain this very Iranian form of melancholy. I don't get it, because for me everything is just sunny and happy-go-lucky, and of course I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek. I want to thank our sponsors tonight. In addition to LACMA, we had some help from Poets and Writers, which is a wonderful organization, and of course that supports both emerging and established authors, of which Gina is one. And I also want to thank Bijan and Kamran Nahayi and Sherry Rizai, as well as Angela Yadigar and Mina Iqbal. Now, I'm not Iranian, but I can pronounce the names pretty well, right? So, thank you. Just out of curiosity, are there any non-Iranians in the audience? If so, raise your hand. Wow, quite a few. Good. Just a quick note on that subject to the Iranians in the audience. Whenever you see that we've got an Iranian event happening, make sure you call your non-Iranian friends and tell your non-Iranians at work to show up, because they're the ones who need to hear this, right? So quickly, the Levantine Cultural Center was founded in the summer of 2001. We didn't predict 9/11, but I think because of the ensuing climate of fear after 9/11 and the world, there's a lot of conflict, especially among our cultures in the Middle East between Arabs and Muslims and Jews. The Levantine Center has a very purposeful life in terms of promoting peaceful coexistence among all the different cultures of the Middle East. And we find that we all have a lot in common because we love literature, we love storytelling, we love being able to get together and share music and food and getting to know each other. And so through the Levantine programs, for example, this Sunday we have a seminar on Arabic music, the history of Arabic music. Through literary programs like this, through our monthly comedy show, through just so many different programs, we get to test the limits of our differences. In fact, finding that we have so much more in common than maybe the media would let on. And we also really want to reach out to Americans who are not from the Middle East, who maybe they're not Jewish, or they're not Arab, or they're not Muslim, they're not Iranian. They hear they hear about Iran, they hear about Israel, they hear about Iraq in the news, and they're curious. If you have friends, you should encourage them to look more into what the Middle East is all about through the literature and the film. And the Levantine Center can be, a good place to start here in LA. So we, of course, welcome your participation and support, and I hope you'll really enjoy this evening's program. I'm looking forward to it. And I just want to introduce our moderator, Dr. Nasreen Rahimi. She is a professor in comparative literature at the University of California, Irvine, at the School of Humanities. She's also the director of the Samuel M. Jordan Center for Persian Studies and Culture. She received her PhD in comparative lit from the University of Alberta, and I talked to her earlier. She's a very proud Canadian, so if she mentions Canada, you'll know. She focuses in her work on intercultural encounters between Iran and the West, also on modern Persian literature, as well as the literature of exile and displacement in general, also on women's writing and on post-revolutionary Iranian cinema. Maybe she can help to explain more why it's so melancholy. Her publications, among her publications, include a couple of very interesting books. One is called Oriental Responses to the West, Comparative Essays on Muslim Writers from the Middle East. And the other one is Missing Persians, Discovering Voices in Iranian Cultural Heritage. She publishes widely in periodicals and anthologies, and she's working on a book-length study now of women's life writing in Persian. So Nasreen Rahimi will introduce our evening's presenters. Thank you.
Good evening, and welcome to our program. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joining you to celebrate and to discuss Jina Barkhordar Nahai's latest novel, Caspian Rain. She has written extensively, and I am quite a fan of all of her novels. Tonight, we will focus on this particular novel, Caspian Rain. Jina is well known to our community here, but she has also made quite a reputation for herself across North America, and we will hear a little bit more about the workings of this novel. May I ask Jina to join us? And now I'm very proud and happy to announce that we will have the pleasure of hearing from Bahar Soumekh, this beautiful actress, talented actress, and she has had many amazing roles. You probably remember her from Crash. We'll hear her read from the novel tonight. Bahar, may I ask you to join us as well? Now, with my introduction, let me begin with this confession. As a longtime admirer of Jina's novels, I feel a particular affinity with this novel, whose very title reminds me of growing up on the shores of the Caspian Sea in the decades before the 1979 revolution, and at a time that Iran's ethnic, religious, and linguistic diversities were much more visible and palpable. I open with this particular personal note because the novel is set in pre-revolutionary Iran and gives us glimpses into a world that we rarely see these days. Caspian Rain reminds me, and every time I read it, I even have a stronger connection with it. Reminds me of part of my formative years and the image I had of what it meant to be Iranian at that time. Growing up in a small town, port town, on the Caspian in the late 50s, I was immersed in the vision my parents and an entire generation of Iranians had embraced as part of becoming modern and progressive. So while I was born into a Muslim family, I never saw the inside of a mosque unless it was during my father's favorite organized visits in the summer to historic cities. Religion was simply not the in thing. Under the reigning Pahlavi monarchs, after whom, incidentally, my hometown was named, Iranians of middle and upper classes accepted the programmatic changes that Reza Shah had first put in place. Now, he was particularly enamored of what was happening in Turkey, and he followed in the footsteps of Ataturk and became determined to propel Iran into a vision of modernity that required a secularization of all arenas of Iranian life and an overhauling of our image, including the way men and women dressed. I'm glad to hear that I'm not preaching just to the converts, so there are more than Iranians. I thought that I could situate the history for you. One of the examples that I always give about this, the changes that were happening, that for instance, the traditional head cover for women, the chador or the rusari, was banned in the late 1930s under the Pahlavi monarch, as were many of the public Shiite rituals of mourning. As the Iranian nation shed visible markers of its identity as a Shiite Muslim nation, it convinced a generation of us, Iranians, to equate religiosity with backwardness, and education and the sciences with progress and modernization. This was the world I was born into. At that time, Iran was keen to project an image of being on the path to what the late Shah called the Great Civilization, with one eye turned to the future, which was bright for Iranians, embracing progress in the sciences, and another to what was perceived as a glorious ancient empire that had vanished after the Islamic conquest of Iran. This past, which incidentally resonates deeply with the Iranian American population of Southern California, or California, was invoked as a time of religious and ethnic tolerance, a time when, despite the dominance of Zoroastrianism as the state religion and the religion of the rulers, other religions had room to exist and to flourish. Recapturing that spirit of diversity and tolerance was also part of the vision of Iran that we were immersed in at the time. So, for instance, the first school I went to, starting with the kindergarten, was an Armenian-Iranian school. And my classmates and I could have almost represented fully Iran's main religions. I say almost because while among us there were Armenians, Muslims, Jews, and Baha'is, there were no Zoroastrians and Assyrian Iranians. That was probably just demographics. As a child, I had an intuitive understanding of the differences that separated us, particularly during those cherished periods when the non-Armenians were exempt from the time that our Armenian classmates were to study religion. It was not until I was older and went to a public school that I realized that our experiences and daily lives outside the school environment were not necessarily identical. So reading and coming back to Caspian Rain, reading Caspian Rain for me is like penetrating under that surface image of my childhood. We see, for instance, how the different layers of society vie with each other for reaching dreams of affluence, education, and economic independence. But it's one thing to dream and another to see those dreams realized. The precarious balance between dream and reality is, for me, the backbone of this beautiful novel. The novel, to give you a short overview of it, is the story of Yas, the single daughter of an unlikely couple. Her mother, also named Bahar, whose name actually in Persian means spring, is born into a poor family in Tehran's Jewish ghetto. True to her name, Bahar is filled with energy and exuberance. But she mistakenly assumes that beyond the ghetto lie mobility and freedom. She imagines that love and marriage will provide her with an entree to a new life, and she believes that marrying a man from a higher class will allow her to pursue her dream of studying and eventually becoming a teacher. When she first meets her future husband, Omid, she overlooks everything that separates their families.